Welcome back to the Pilots Club, a podcast all about the first episodes of television shows and the many reasons why they might be worth a watch. Every month, we pick a different pilot episode to watch and then discuss it right here on our show. We release these episodes first and foremost to our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/thewhatnots on our $3 tier and above. Then 2 years later, we release those episodes to a wider audience on a public feed. So if you want to catch up on 2 years worth of episodes, patreon.com/thewhatnots is the place to do that. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, what'd you think of my spiffy new intro?
I'm already exhausted at having to hear you say it once a month for the rest of time.
Yeah.
I'm like, another. As much as I love doing this, the one thing that just wears me out is hearing the exact same rote text every single episode. Because we try and make podcasts where any episode can be anybody's first. This stuff has to be there. I know that, but I'm like, I get this real repetition sickness sometimes.
I get it. I understand. I tried to write this over this past week, and it was much longer than this, and I immediately was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to memorize all of that. And I was like, no, let me shorten this up. I don't want to read all of that.
It's been a year at my day job where I've had to train 6 new people, which is also, I have to say the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes it's a stress trigger when I go home and I'm like, it's the same thing again. I can't escape.
Well, that is, I think, for the most part, what our new intro will be. I think the plan is from here on out, if everything goes according to plan, is that, 2 years after we release them, they will be released to the public. We'll have a public feed that you guys can listen to the Pilots Club on. Good stuff with all of that. Melissa, this month we are here to talk about the pilot episode of Manifest, a show that I've had on my radar for a little while. I feel like I thought this show was a lot older than it actually is. Like, for some reason, I thought this came out in like 2015-ish.
Yeah.
But it did not. It came out in 2018.
What a difference.
I mean, look, that's 3 whole years. That could be 3 seasons worth of stuff there. But no, I've had this my eye on this show for a while, specifically because of my love for Lost. Right? Weird plane mystery. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff. And so I wanted to bring this to the show to check it out and see what this was all about. Also, partly to kind of push myself over the edge so that I could actually finally watch this show. And I do have to say, challenge completed. I have now seen all 4 seasons of the show.
Is it a show with a complete ending?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Does end.
I always feel like I need to check. I'm scared I've waded into the waters where somebody's show got canceled and they're mad about it, and they have to tell me that they're mad about it.
The show did get canceled after season 3, and then they put those seasons on Netflix, and it like skyrocketed up to their like most watch top charts, you know, all of that stuff. And so Netflix was like, sure, we'll give you a season 4, and that was their final one. They wrapped it all up. Mystery solved. Was this show on your radar at all? Did you have any interest in this show kind of before I mentioned it to bring it on the show here?
No, I don't tend to spend a lot of time on Netflix because it's too busy for me. I don't like how everything just plays at you. I don't like to spend time there. I get in and I get out with Netflix. So I do tend to miss any big
auto-playing songs suck.
So there are a lot of things on Netflix I know I am missing, and I guess this was one of them.
I gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I was excited to jump into this. I just use this as a personal launch pad to be like, hey, Kyle, go watch that show. But now that we have both seen the pilot episode of this, what did you think, Melissa?
Let's start with what you thought.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think the initial conceit of this show is phenomenal. The idea of a plane leaving and then landing in what appears to be the right time, only for the passengers of said plane to find out, no, they've been gone for 5.5 years, I think is fantastic. Because to them, it was like, no, we were only up in the air for 2 hours, right? Like, or however long it takes to go from Jamaica to New York, right? Like it was a normal plane ride for us. And everyone else is like, yeah, no, what happened here? And I think that initial conceit is so strong. I think this kind of being a show about these people coming back into their lives after a lot of their friends and family members had kind of moved on or did something else with their life, right? That creates this kind of inherent sense of tension, or they don't fit in, they don't belong, or they have the people that they once thought were family might now not be. And so it makes for good drama. So I really enjoyed the pilot of this here. And we'll get into some more of the stuff that happens with their visions and all that stuff in a sec. But yeah, I thought good pilot. Good stuff.
I had trouble connecting with it, and I watched it this morning, and I often wonder if other factors in my life influence how I feel about a thing I have to watch when I have to watch it on schedule and I can't save it for a later time. And I'm like, do I not like this, or do I not like this just because I'm tired? Whose fault is this?
1000% understandable. I have done that with shows where I've like started it and been just like, yeah, no, this is not the right time. Sorry. So what was there specific aspects about it that you weren't connecting with, or that you thought was too hard to like get into or follow?
It's a little melodramatic for me. I didn't find a lot of things that felt really grounded or true to life, or there's no humor in it. Nobody has a personality quirk. It's all just sort of big and broad and dramatic. And the episode starts with this voiceover from our main character, played by an actress named Melissa something. So I do have to respect another Melissa out there in the world. Yep. Where she's like, some people says it was a miracle. All I know is this was the day my life changed forever. I'm like, has this pilot seen other pilots? That's how most of them go. Like, you're not surprising me here at all. I want us to go through the list of pilots we have watched, and most of them are the day a character's life changed forever.
Right. Or like my name is Barry Allen and I'm the fastest man alive. Right.
I'm like, you're not really reeling me in by a day a life, somebody's life changed forever. I've seen that. I've seen that so many times. What else?
Every day my life changes forever. I'm a day older.
I do get the allure of a thing that's like Lost, but frequently I'm like, this thing is not as good as Lost was. Lost has a real charm to it, a real warmth. It's got these very specific characters. on these specific journeys. And I did find some aspects of this pilot that I did like, some aspects of the setup that I was intrigued by, but it's like,
yeah,
you can't show up this late to the game with this so few things in your hands and be that dramatic about it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about pilot episodes that we've kind of been learning, right? Is they have all kinds of different purposes or level of completion, right? Some might be like, hey, here's just the basic concepts, characters, like, and right, the versions of those characters in a pilot like this one might be fairly straightforward, might be fairly bland. And then they have, right, 4 seasons then to figure out who those characters are and what journeys they're on, right? Like, yeah. You and I have the knowledge of all the character quirks and journeys that everyone from Lost went on. I now have all the knowledge of where all of these characters go. And stuff like that. I will save my thoughts on the whole show till the end here to focus on the pilot. But you're not wrong. I see where you're coming at too, because again, to keep comparing it to Lost, which is also, I think, unfortunate for the show, is that Lost just kind of like lightning struck in a bottle. That pilot was so super expensive to make. It did more so in its earlier seasons, but it didn't really look like a network television show. It did have a more prestige, or what we would think of nowadays as a prestige look. Whereas I think something like Manifest just kind of looks like what you would typically see on NBC in prime time.
Yes, right? Exactly. I'm like, this looks real late 2000s network TV.
Yeah. So, like, that's the thing. You have to go into these sometimes in different modes and find different things to try to connect to, or just be like, yeah, I just don't think this was good. Right?
They laid out clearly like every obstacle and every problem and conflict that these characters are facing. But like, I get it. I see all the conflicts, but like, if I was asked, what do you like about this main character? I'm like, she is the main character. I can clearly tell that she is the protagonist.
I like that the actor's name is Melissa.
Right. Her hair's nice. I don't know.
Yeah, they do kind of lay everything out in terms of like, hey, yeah, this character is gonna try heading back in with her family. This one is trying to figure things out with her ex-fiance. There's the shady government organization that will be after them. There will be the cops that don't understand. There will be just all sorts of stuff. I do like some of the things that they are kind of putting in the field, though, if that makes sense. Like, I like this idea of this doctor, right, who's on the plane and comes back to find out that the research that she had maybe not completely finished, but was like about to be like, man, I just made a breakthrough. Let me show you all of this stuff, to come back home and find out that, like, yes, I was onto something. You guys took the rest of my research notes, figured it out, and have like saved people's lives with that. But on the flip side, only to find out that, like, hey, you guys aren't accepting the people that actually need help with it. Like, there's interesting stuff in there for sure.
And that was a scene where I'm like, I am not feeling like the man she's arguing against is a real person so much as he is like a straw man to present a conflict for her to overcome.
Absolutely. To be honest, I don't think we ever see him again in the show. Maybe early on in like episode 2 or 3, but beyond that, nope, don't see him again. Yeah, I like the mystery of like I'm attracted to the mystery of this show of what happened to this plane. Why was there this weird storm? Why was there this bright flash of light? What is really going on? And that hooks me, right? And then I think, you have the elements of the human emotion and drama of people just trying to fit in, which is fairly cut and dry. Like that could be in any show, but also I get it. I understand it, right? That helps. Like once you explore that, that's what makes those characters part of who they are. And stuff like that, or how they then rediscover themselves of like, well, I just had this big life. My name's Melissa, and my life is changed forever, right? Though that's not her character's name.
Michaela.
Michaela Stone. Yeah. I don't know. Like if none of the characters really stood out to you or anything like that, was there any kind of like hint of the mystery that interests you the most? What did speak to you?
I think the mystery is intriguing. That the plane takes off, they encounter a sudden turbulence. And it seems like that there's very little time between when they hit the turbulence and then when they try to land. I was expecting for it to feel like they spent more time up there in the air. Over it's like they're flying from Jamaica to New York City.
Correct, yeah.
And when the turbulence hits, it's not like they're over a spot in the ocean like with Lost. It seems like they're just flying over Jersey or something. They seem very close to the destination. So like that's interesting that it's at that part of the journey. That's not the pacing of the thing I was expecting. They land, and the reaction they get from the officials is just sort of like, great. Wait, like the guy they talk
all
to
the paperwork I'm gonna have to do now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. He's not in awe. He's not grateful. He's like, now I got to figure out what this is. And they see everybody on the plane get interviewed, and the pilot is like, we took off at this time. We encountered this turbulence and we called in to land here. And he's like, well, what really happened? And he's like, I told you it was that. It was just literally that. Yeah. It's like, of course, the initial, I like the initial mystery hook. I do like it. Like you said, weird plane stuff that can get us every time. But then the voices that the characters are hearing, I'm like, I don't know if I needed this. I feel like you had plenty to begin with that you could have dug into to have our main character and her brother. I do like that it's like an adult brother and sister who are the main relationship that we're focusing on. They both are hearing these voices, giving them these messages. And they're like, and then they do find out that like this was happening to everybody else who was on the plane, and everybody just sort of gathers at the airport to just stare at the plane wordlessly together.
Yep. And then poof, it blows up.
I don't know. I don't know if I need this in the pilot. I could see it being an interesting addition a couple episodes in, maybe like as you get towards the end of a first season. But I'm like, I think you already have plenty. And the hearing voices in your head, it's so repetitive, again, that it does get a little grating. Like our main character jogs past this yard that is these dogs chained up in it. She keeps hearing, set them free, set them free. Set them free. And you have, because the character's going through it, you, the audience, have to hear, set them free like 20 times And I'm like, I'm good. I got the message. Like, of all the additional mystery hooks to throw in, I'm like, I think you picked the one that's going to become grating to me the most quickly.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, so the characters get these visions that they end up calling callings, and yeah, it is a little bit different from character to character, but it is essentially, yeah, they will often like hear some phrase, and then they have to interpret what that means based on their situation, and yeah, it is interesting because you think it's saying one thing, but it might mean something else, or they don't know exactly. But it
right, like she sets the dogs free, and then she's still hearing that voice, and then like the guy who owned that junkyard had these kidnapped girls, so that's who she was really supposed to set free. And I'm like, well, can one of the first questions you investigate be, why is this voice in my head so vague? Why can't you just give me more than that? Why can't you give me further directions? Like, no, that wasn't it. Try again. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said set those two girls free. Sorry, you misunderstood and thought it was the dogs. I'll try better next time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just like it seems like quite a bit because on top of all the mystery that we've already mentioned, this first pilot episode also ends up playing out kind of like a fairly typical like mystery of the week crime show.
Yeah.
Right. Well, your CSI, your Law and Order, your who knows what. And they do a good job of it, but it is also just the like run of the mill standard like okay, you investigate this thing and by the end you've solved the case. Cool.
It felt like it was like 10 years too late. This, when you said it reminded you of a crime procedural, I'm like, this reminds me of the slightly supernatural flavored crime procedurals of the mid 2000s, like Medium and Ghost Whisperer. And it feels like that run of shows after Lost. Like, there was also everybody gets on a plane and then they come back and it's the wrong time or whatever. Do you remember that show? Henry Ian Cusick was on it briefly, or maybe Dominic Monaghan was. Like, they got a Lost guy in it briefly. It came out when we were in college. It's like a 2009, 2008 show.
I know on the CW there was the 100, but that's not a like plane.
It's not that one
missing.
It's another plane show. It's called like Departure or something. I don't know.
There is Departure. That was a 2019 show.
No, it's we were in college.
There was the 4400. People do that stuff. There is the Returned, which is there's the original
Flash Forward. That's what it was. It was Flash. Okay, maybe it wasn't a plane. But like it was a Heroes type event. Heroes, another one of these. They had like an eclipse that affected everybody. Flash Forward did one of these where it's like
save the world.
Right. We're like then suddenly everybody's getting like flash forwards. They see like one random minute of some point in the future and everybody's got these different pieces and they're like, how do we put this together and figure out like what did I see? When is it coming? What do I have to do about it? Like there was an era of things like this. And I don't think like Medium went on for a while. Ghost Whisperer went on for a little while. But all of the things that were like Lost, like Heroes might have been the most successful of them. And Heroes just sort of petered off after like 3 seasons. So to learn that this show came out on Netflix in 2018 and it had a successful 4-season run.
2018.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That might be part of it. Like this feels like a network show, but it feels like a network show from a decade prior that would have fizzled out after a season.
Yeah.
And to learn that it was a modern day hit that was supposedly at one point the most watched show on Netflix. I'm like, are you sure? Were all these people also on a plane where they lost several years of time? Like it just feels sort of oddly out of step with larger culture.
That is what I was trying to get at earlier of like, I felt like this came out in like 2014, 2015. Like
Right.
I thought this show was older than it was, and it was just slow to release seasons or had gotten canceled and was canceled for a couple years until Netflix revived it. But no, I guess not. But yeah. Do you have any other kind of things that stood out to you that you wanted to touch on? Mention?
There is one character hook I did find intriguing. I feel like I've been a real negative Nancy over here, but I'm just like, I don't see what this show offers yet that other shows have not already given us. But our main character, Michaela, when the show starts, she's coming back from a family vacation, like her brother and his family and her parents. And somebody named Jared has like just proposed to her. And we don't know yet if she has accepted the proposal or not, but it seems like she's really on the fence about it. And her family's like, Jared's great. Jared loves you. Like, Jared's really, you two would be great together. This could make you so happy. I don't know why you're not accepting. Like, why can't you let yourself have this happiness? And she mentions something like in her voiceover. She's like, I was never the same after the accident. And then I was also never the same after this other accident that you're going to see here in this pilot episode where the plane lands at the wrong time. So I was wondering, maybe she had a previous boyfriend or fiance or husband who died in a car crash, and she's just having trouble moving on to the next love of her life. And then later you find out she was in a car with somebody named Evie who died, and it went to, like a judge ruled it like that's an accident, you're not guilty of anything. And she's like, I feel guilty. I feel like a murderer. I don't know why everybody is just letting me walk around and telling me I should let myself be happy. I am a murderer. And I like that it's this more specific, like, I feel so ashamed of something in my past, and I don't understand why other people are letting me get away with something I don't feel like I should be getting away with. She's not keeping a secret. Everybody knows, but they have a very different emotional reaction to it than she does. She's like, I don't get why you guys aren't also angry at me. And I don't know who Evie is. Like I said, I was really expecting this is some past partner. And maybe this was a partner. Maybe she's a queer character. She had a wife, maybe, and now she's considering this man who she would marry and become a husband. Or is it a friend, a partner? She's a police officer. Like, was it a partner? Was it a daughter? I don't know. Like, who is Evie? What were the circumstances of this accident?
I mean, minor spoilers with that. This is not anything of like how the mystery is solved. Evie was her best friend growing up. And yeah, they were out one night. They were both drunk, and she decided to drive to stop Evie from driving, who was even more drunk. And yeah, they got in a car accident, and she died. So she feels responsible for killing her best friend. And yeah, that has affected her pretty greatly. So yeah. So you nailed it of like, I feel like it's like a partner or a friend or like someone that's important in her life. So yeah, I mean, you nailed it.
Interesting. I just, with this being a romantic conflict of her being hesitant about this engagement, I figured it would also be a romantic conflict in the past. But that's interesting to know it was a platonic best friend from seemingly several years ago. Like, this doesn't seem, if they were young and drunk, our character looks like she's our age. So that was maybe like 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, that is an interesting
like
arc.
That is
just
out of college-ish time. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. So I have a few thoughts about the show in general, if you don't mind me sharing.
Yeah, I am curious what if you had not, because you're somebody who's sometimes like, I will do this now. I've set myself the goal. I will meet the goal. if it wasn't a goal you had preset, would you have continued with the show?
I would have continued with the show, yes. I would have probably stopped watching the show pretty quickly. At the end of the day, I don't think the show was very good by the end of it. And that's not because like the characters were bad or anything like that. My reasons for not really liking the show and what they did with it are more personal. This is gonna sound harsh, but I almost feel tricked into watching the show as it is very Christian coded.
I did get that vibe. I'm like, I don't think this is just the mom who died who had like one Bible aphorism she liked to quote at them, and then the character connects it back to another Bible aphorism. I'm like, I think that's who the audience of the show is Christian moms. It is the mom we see in the show.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. Or even when we look into shows like The Leftovers, like they take a religious turn in that show, but they're also not so they are explicitly Christian in certain ways, but not so explicit that it's like I felt tricked into like, oh, this is a Christian show.
Right. It's a show that's like The Leftovers and Lost are both shows that are about faith and belief in, including in a religious way, but mostly in a larger way with like destiny and fate and believing in yourself and believing in your community. And maybe you do also literally pray.
Yeah. This kind of takes it a step forward to the bits where, they're quoting scriptures often and naming those scriptures. It gets to the point where they are quoting scriptures without saying they're quoting scriptures, and they're trying to pass it off as regular dialogue in this show. Yeah, to which I was like, look, I grew up religious. I know that you're quoting scripture, but you're trying to like it was just like, you can't get that one on me. And then the visions that they get, of course, like they call them callings, which is Christian coded in the sense that like you have a higher calling. You were called by God. The word church, if I'm not mistaken, literally translates to the ones called out. And so, they do stuff like that. They get to the point where a number of the main characters are genuinely calling these like these are these callings are from God. And then on top of that, they seem to kind of not mention any other religion.
Yeah,
like they don't bring in that. Like there's except for a few scriptural stuff, they don't bring in like Old Testament stuff. It's mainly New Testament. So it's not really like any kind of a Jewish thing. They don't mention Islam at all. It was just so completely Christian coded that I was just like, oh, okay, sure. And that there's some more wilder stuff that I won't even mention for spoilers, but.
I do kind of appreciate that we are seeing a middle ground between there's like the all Christian net streaming service Pureflix instead of Netflix, where it's like you cannot watch Netflix, you must go to Pureflix. That we have something that's like between that and more mainstream entertainment. Like if you are a Christian, can you watch something that like has a Christian vibe but isn't like every single episode is about a Bible lesson? I appreciate that this is out there for somebody whose life is at they're on that point on the greater like spectrum of faith. I like that there's gradations of how much Christianity you could get on a show, but it is disappointing to learn that they don't take a look at other faiths and this diverse group of people who are on this plane.
Yeah. but like again, that's not to say that like the characters were bad or the writers were bad on this show or anything like that. I think they get that in there pretty quick from the start and kind of stick with it the entirety of the show, if not put more of that in as it goes along. So it seems like they had an idea and they stuck with it and they did their mystery around it. And by the end, the whole thing is solved and you get resolution for the mystery and the characters and all of that stuff. And I like, in that sense, it was a successful show, right? Like
That's good.
It lasted for 3 seasons on NBC before it got canceled, was revived by Netflix. So like it found its audience. It was successful in that sense. It was just me. I just ended up not connecting with that show. And since I'm kind of a completionist, I was just like, I'm going to finish watching the show.
Right. See, whereas I'm the person who also is kind of a completionist, but I'm aware of it and it holds me back from trying a lot of things. I want to either watch all of a thing or never watch any of a thing. I don't like to start something and then fall off of it.
And
so like if I don't know,
Club was her worst nightmare. We just watched the first episode.
Like this is the one context in which I do it for purposefully experimental podcast content.
Yeah.
I'm like, now Netflix is there has to be a way I can tell streaming service I did this for a podcast. I'm done now. Right. I will not finish the show.
You need to make a whole separate account. This is my podcast account. Let's see here. Okay, so for next month, Melissa, you had some trouble finding the one that you were hoping to pitch, so we're gonna skip out on that one. And we've decided on another show called Unicorn Warriors Eternal. This is a cartoon that is available on Max, on HBO Max. This is Genndy Tartakovsky's newest cartoon from Cartoon Network Studios. I have seen the first season of this one, and this is kind of an animation nerd's dream. And not just like a Disney animation nerd, but like animation in general, from like old school anime and manga to like newer stuff that mixes Tartakovsky's like newer character style as well as stuff he's never done before too. So this is definitely a visual treat. I saw like bits and pieces of it on Twitter when it was coming out and was just like, that looks awesome. Like the artwork looks incredible. So yeah, that is what we will do for the month of December. Unicorn Warriors Eternal. So yeah, that about wraps us up for this show. Melissa, do you have any kind of final things you want to say here before we sign off?
No.
That is A-okay.
I always feel like I'm in such a spotlight, and I know you're doing it to be polite, but I'm like, am I supposed to have another thought? I'm like really scrambling here.
Nope, you can just say all good. Nope, I'm done. But yeah, with that, we will wrap this one up. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you will join us next month in December as we talk about our next one. So yeah, we will see you all then. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.